You are an incredible international speaker and trainer in early childhood. You have a huge experience in Montessori teaching. You are the founder and director of My Montessori School in Sydney, Australia. You have this huge passion for children's learning and development and supporting their parents, as the guiding adults. And you have also founded the Guide and Grow community that we are running now somehow together, and which has now more than 400,000 members, which is incredible. It's like, inspiring a huge city when it comes to Montessori. You have your Montessori 0 to 3 training, 3 to 6 training. You have international communication degree. You have masters in teaching, specializing in early childhood. What did I forget?
That's enough, Lucy. That's good. I think that's good.
So, my first question. And we are going to talk about communication and discipline. So, all of the questions are coming to this topic. Often, as parents, we find ourselves wondering if something our child is doing is normal. Maybe it's those moments when they suddenly refuse to wear socks or they insist on doing something themselves, but they get upset when they can't or when we don't allow them. And these behaviors can be confusing or even frustrating, and they can somehow leave us unsure how to respond. So, my question is, how can understanding what's developmentally normal help us better navigate in these situations?
That's a really good question to start off with. I think the number one thing when we're thinking about what is developmentally normal is that a lot of the time we just see our child's behavior for what it is on the outset. So when we see our child, what we think is misbehaving, they're repeating something over and over again. They know how to push our buttons, all of this kind of stuff. What we don't realize is that their brains are still developing. So when we talk about the 0 to 3 brain, we know that by age 3 years old, 80% of the brain is being developed. So the thing is that when a child, and the prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of the brain, that's the part of the brain that deals with emotional regulation, logic, like you can process your emotions and all that sort of stuff. That doesn't develop until a child is like 25, 26 years old. So the thing is that we expect something of a child that's not even developmentally appropriate at that stage because they don't have the experience. They don't know how to process their emotions or behaviors. All they're doing is that they're actually just trying to communicate to us. So when we see behavior, we need to understand that that child is needing something, whether it's physical, emotional, mental. There's some need that's underlying that isn't being met. And this is why they display those behaviors. So when we look at it in that light, we realize, hey, actually, my child is not doing this because they just want to drive me crazy, or the child is not doing that just because they're naughty. It's because they actually are struggling in that moment and they don't know what else to do. So I think having that mentality first and foremost is really, really important, because when we see children in that light, we can be like, oh my gosh, they're really struggling right now. I need to support them. Because that's our job as caregivers, adults, parents. We need to support children in their behavior because they don't have any skills. They don't know what to do. When they are acting in that way, that's all that their brain knows how to do and function. So I think instead of saying, why are they doing that? We need to be like, oh, my child is learning. I need to support them. So that's the first thing I wanted to mention. The other thing is I wanted to say that when like kids are going through that, maybe from 12 months, even earlier, from 10 months up until the 2-year-old mark, we know that children need autonomy. So Maria Montessori spoke very often about this need for autonomy, which is basically when a child is going through this period of time, they're developing their character, they're developing their personality, they're learning about the rules around them and how to interact with people and in the environment and everything. So they're learning during this stage, but they have this need to be autonomous, which means I need to do everything myself. I want to do everything. I want to test boundaries. I want to understand. It's this egocentric stage. So it's all about me. I don't know if you guys have heard the toddlers rule of property. It's like, if I like it, it's mine. If it's in my hand, it's mine. If I can take you, it's from you, it's mine. If I had it a little while ago, it's mine. You know, if you're doing something or building something, if you put it down, it's automatically mine. You know, all this. I saw it first, it's mine. So they are wired this way, right? And so we have to understand that it is normal for toddlers to want to kind of get into everything, touch everything, you know, have this autonomy over everything. So when we see this as being developmentally normal, we realize that, hey, my child is just being a child and they're acting the way they're supposed to. So they are going to have stages where they explode with energy, they become frustrated at things quite quickly, they repeat things over and over again because they want to master something. They might dawdle, which means that they like to take their time and slow down and, you know, look at everything in their environment. And sometimes that can really frustrate us as adults because we're like, quickly, come on, hurry up. And this is where the difference in brains kind of comes in. So when we understand that these kind of behaviors in young children are normal and typical of their development, we can shift our thinking to understand how then to see how you can support your child rather than becoming frustrated because they're doing these things that are totally normal for them to be doing.
My second question, often we hear the term positive discipline, and I would like you to explain to us the difference between gentle parenting, positive discipline, traditional parenting, and where does Montessori actually fit in?
Okay, great question. And I did see a few questions in the chat. We will definitely answer those, and a lot of those questions I'm sure we'll go through with Lucy as well. So let's start off with traditional parenting. Probably me and a lot of people in this room have grown up with traditional parenting. So the traditional ways are more like, you know, that time out, you being sent to your room, not being able to feel any emotions. Like I know growing up, I was never allowed to show my parents that I was upset or angry or jealous of my sibling. Alina, if my sister's listening from Egypt out there, you know, we have these things where we feel jealous or angry and upset, but in our culture, it was very much frowned upon that any negative feelings or emotions were being shown. Like you love your sister, you know, you care for each other, like don't be upset with each other and all this sort of stuff, kind of push the feelings down. They don't matter. And a lot of the time it's that threatening and bribery and kind of this controlling way of authority. I am the parent, you are the child, you need to listen to me. So that's that traditional parenting. And I think over time and research and science and everything that's come out, we realize that this way of parenting is kind of, it damages children's self-esteem, and it also it makes them feel misunderstood, and it's a real disconnect between the parents and the children. It's almost like this fear-based. I was complying because I was scared. I was scared of my parents, or I was scared what I was going to get in trouble. So, and that doesn't create a strong connection or a strong bond with anyone. So we have to understand that that isn't the way to help support children. So then we have things that have evolved over time. We know Montessori's been there for decades, so I'll get to that. But the thing with gentle parenting. So gentle parenting really focuses on that connection, empathy, building your child's emotional intelligence, emotional skills, being really calm all the time, which is so hard to do. Then you've got gentle parenting, trying to empathize with your child and understand them. I think the thing is sometimes it may not have the structure that something like positive discipline or Montessori can have. So then we move into positive discipline. So that's kind of like this thing where you've got connection and structure. I won't go into it too much detail because I know that there's a whole session on positive discipline that somebody's doing in this conference. But basically, it really emphasizes guiding children to have that self-regulation. When we say self-regulation, we mean that they can actually have the skills to know how to calm down, how to, cooperate, having time in. So instead of having that time out where they're sent to their room, they have a space where they can actually process their emotions. We're supporting the child then how to follow the rules of the house or whatever it is, but we're helping to really understand how to build their skills so that they can problem solve, and then building that emotional awareness around them. Um, and it also fosters things like independence, and responsibility. So Montessori kind of fits really beautifully within that positive discipline kind of framework. I think it really pulls from all of what I've spoken about, like a little bit from gentle parenting, a little bit from positive discipline, because we know in Montessori, she talks about freedom within limits, okay? And a lot of the biggest misconception that I hear about Montessori, especially because it's moved from education to parenting, is that Montessori kids are allowed to do whatever they want, right? They can choose whatever they want. They have this freedom. They can, do whatever they like. But there's a beautiful quote by Maria Montessori that I wanted to mention to you guys. It's to let the child do as he likes when he has not yet developed any powers of control is to betray the idea of freedom. I'm going to repeat that just one more time. To let the child do as he likes when he has not yet developed any powers of control is to betray the idea of freedom. She clearly states it is so important to have boundaries. So it's really important for a child to be given that freedom to choose what they like to do, to, have this respect in the environment and all that. But you need to have it within boundaries. So she spoke about this idea of freedom within limits. So the limits are the child needs to respect themselves, respect the environment, and respect other people. Okay. So the freedom is offered to the child within that framework, and that framework can be applied in parenting as well. So I love the fact that Montessori is all about helping the child develop their problem solving skills, giving them independence. So allowing them to make choices within their day or within things so that you can help them feel empowered. Because the more empowered, the more secure a child feels in their space and in their family, the more that they are going to feel confident. And then you're going to not have these power struggles that happen because they feel like they're contributing. And this is also another thing that I love about the Montessori philosophy is that we see the child as respectful. We respect them. We see them as capable. We see them as confident. So when you see the child in that light, it actually changes the outcomes. It changes their behavior. It changes the whole perspective on how you view that child and what's going on. And I think that is the beginning of children's behavior changing. It's a shift in perspective. It's our view of them that will make all the difference in how they respond to you.
Thank you. When you look at the child's behavior, how can you figure out what's going on with them, in them?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think the biggest tool like that Montessori gave us was the art of observation, right? She always described like observing children as if you were a scientist and like figuring out what's going on. But I think observation is one of the best tools that you can give. And it doesn't matter if you're not trained. It doesn't matter if you're not an educator with, 10 years of Montessori experience. Anybody can observe their children because when you actually start observing your child, you then realize what kind of patterns you can see that are happening, what specific times is that behavior coming up, what is the external factor that's triggering that behavior. So sometimes there could be something else that's going on. I think I saw a comment about a child hitting, or and she was mentioning, oh, it could be about jealousy from pregnancy. Absolutely. Any major changes in their life, whether it's a new sibling on the way, transitions to school, any environmental factor that's happening could actually change, or that could be a particular thing that we observe that's going on, that's going to reflect in your child's behavior. So you've really got to remain objective if you can, and just take a little notebook and have a piece of paper and write down the time of what happened. Describe, don't view it as good or bad. It's not good or bad. Whatever happened, and your child is struggling. So write down the behavior, what you saw, what was happening in the environment around them, and what was the outcome of that, and record it every time it happens. Because what you'll start to notice is, oh, it happens at this particular time of the day, or when this particular thing is happening. So observation, we can go so deeply into that. I could do a 2-hour presentation on it, but really it's because we need to use that tool. So are they overstimulated? Are they hungry? Are they tired? Do they need attention? There are circumstances always around behavior, so we need to understand what those are. The other thing I wanted to mention was this thing called active listening. So a lot of the time people are like, oh yeah, I'm listening to my child's needs. But all you're really doing is you're just reacting to them. So, instead of responding to them, or thinking, you know what, I'm going to put myself in my child's shoes right now. Their sister came along, knocked over all the blocks. They're really upset. Instead of, being like, oh, don't worry, we can just rebuild it again. It's fine. And trying to fix it, because we're adults, we just want to fix everything. That's our brain. We want to find a solution. We want to fix everything. It's really about understanding and putting yourself in that child's position. Like, how are they really feeling? Their whole world just collapsed because of this tower. Like, it is a big deal for them. It's not a big deal for us, but it is a big deal for them. So I think hearing what your child is trying to tell you, rather than automatically just diving in and trying to save them or fix it or respond to them, it's really important that you do that. Because then you'll be better able to understand what they need from you at that time. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention, and this is something that I feel really deeply about, is understanding and uncovering like what kind of biases that we might have due to things that we hold onto the way our parents have raised us, or things, or cultural upbringing, things that might influence the way we react to our children. So sometimes we were discouraged to maybe be independent growing up. Are we then hindering our child's independence because of that? Subconsciously, we might have these things, these anxieties. Everything needs to be perfect. Everything needs to be clean. We need to do this. So that might be triggering the way we respond to our children. So that's another thing that we need to have. We have to recognize, why am I reacting this way? Why does it trigger me? Why does it bother me? And that's really deep internal work. And, it's something that takes a lifetime. We know that children, whether you're a teacher, parent, educator, caregiver, they will show up parts of your personality and character that you didn't even realize existed because they reflect this, and it's just a reflection of yourself. So when your child is triggering you, or has this moment where they're, and it really bothers you, you're actually looking at yourself. So this is like one of those moments that is so pivotal. And I love it because children are just literally teaching us so much about ourselves if we're just in tune to it. So I think if you combine a lot of those strategies, that's really how you're going to help understand the behaviors that are going on for your child.
Once we figure out what's going on, how do we get the children to actually cooperate?
Yep, that's a
There's
$1 million
many
question.
questions in the chat already about this topic, so I think I'm.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think the first thing that I wanted to say was this quote that I love, that we always hear this everywhere. I'm sure a lot of people have heard this quote, but it's, where did we get this crazy idea that in order to make children do better, we make them feel worse? So a lot of the time when we go, to kind of get children to do something or whatever, like we make them feel worse. Like, why are you doing that? And how many times have I told you? And, all these things that we love throwing out there because we're stressed, we don't have time, we're human, we're emotional. We throw that out there and then we realize, oh my God, like this is how I'm going to get my child to cooperate. Unfortunately, no, it's going to push them away and it's going to make them more defensive about everything. So the first thing that I always talk about is, the questions that come up, like how do you handle, behavior, or how do you get your child to cooperate? The first thing that I always say is to offer choices. So the best thing about Montessori is we know that children thrive on independence and having choices in things. So in any time that's possible, we need to offer children choices. And it's not a choice of whether to do something or not. Okay, big difference. It's a choice on how to do something. So they don't have the choice to do that thing or not. It's about how they're going to do that. Are you going to wear the red t-shirt or the blue t-shirt? Are you going to hop to the car or fly like a bird? Whatever it is, when we give children choices, they have this sense of feeling like they are in control, right? They feel like, hey, actually, I can make a decision here. I'm in control. It's this false sense of, well, not false because they are being offered the choice, but it's in the framework, right? The choice is within a framework that they can actually feel empowered to contribute to what's going on. And when they do that, it will then avoid the power struggle. Right? It's so simple. Like, but if you realize how many times do you actually allow your child to choose, you probably don't often enough. And I feel like those small little things, would you like this or this, or, whatever it is, makes such a huge difference to the way they cooperate. The other thing is modeling behavior. So, cooperation is always about modeling. They learn by observing. We know that children always learn by observing adults. So, if something happened, to be able to model the kindness, the empathy, whatever it is that you need them to do, this is going to be the best way to move forward. And I know that's really hard when emotions are really high. And like, someone said, how do I model calm behavior and maintain peace, especially when I feel overwhelmed and stressed? Hugely appropriate question. It is so true. And this is where we need to come up with our own strategies to help us calm. So as soon as we feel that child has triggered something in us, or we feel this sense of overwhelm, I will literally model and take a deep breath and be like, I'm just feeling a bit frustrated right now. I need to process my emotions. I'll be with you in a minute, right? So, what you've just done there is you've literally modeled for the child coping strategies, whether it's taking a sip of water, whether it's breathing, whether it's counting to three, whether it's walking away. I just need a minute to process my emotions. I'll be with you. You can come with me or you can stay here, whatever it is, you can offer them a choice if you need to. But it's really about finding a strategy that's going to work for you. Some people might, think about something that is helpful to make them feel calm. Some people put pictures up of snow or whatever it is that makes you feel really calm, the ocean. But you need to find that strategy because it's going to happen a lot where you feel tired and stressed and overwhelmed. And it's so important that you have that strategy at hand because that becomes part of your toolkit. It becomes part of the way that you can help yourself so that you can help your child because there's no point of trying to help a child work through their emotions and the tantrums and all that if we feel very heightened in our emotions and feelings. Because when we are heightened in our feelings and emotions, all we're doing is we're putting fuel to the fire, right? And the child cannot come up to our level. They don't have the brain capacity to do that. So we have to calm so we can go down to their level and then help them co-regulate, which means that we give them some of our calming energy and all that. And no, it doesn't happen all the time. And that's okay. If you lose it and you are upset about it, guess what? It's another opportunity to go and model for your children. go back to them. I'm really sorry that I was overwhelmed with my feelings. I should have been blah, 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 instead of yelling. That's a great opportunity to model for them how to make amends in a situation. So the other thing I was going to say was we're back to cooperation because I tend to sidetrack 50 times. Sorry, Lissy. Use clear and really simple language. So a lot of the time we go into this thing of needing to explain to our children 100 things about what needs to happen, and they can't process that many words in one sentence. It's like, oh, you've got to put your shoes on because we got to go to school and we're meeting our friends and da 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 da. And like we go into this long history of story about why they need to put their shoes on. But it's really important to use clear and concise language so that children know what to do or what's the expectation or instruction for them. So it's like shoes, it could even just be one word. It doesn't need to be this lengthy explanation, especially with young children. Like we're dealing with children under 3. The other thing I was going to say was acknowledge feelings. And this is something I'm so passionate about. So passionate about because often we dismiss their feelings. If you do not connect with a child, if you don't acknowledge their feelings or even just offer that connection, no matter what strategy you use after that, offering choices, getting them involved, being independent, whatever, it doesn't matter. It won't happen. So if there's anything you can literally take out of this session, it's to connect with a child in that moment. And that connection could be just getting on their level. It could just be if they're really overwhelmed and having a tantrum, it could just be like sitting near them and being like, I can see you're really overwhelmed. I'm here if you need me. And just being that calm in their presence. Sometimes they need time. They need time to ride the wave. There's no magic. There's no magic cure like, oh, my child's having a tantrum. Let me just do this and they'll stop. There are things we can do beforehand, right, to prevent that from happening. There are things during it that we can do to support them, which is what I mentioned. And then afterwards, there's things we can do to then be proactive so that it doesn't happen again. And then it becomes less and less as time goes on.
I like that you have finished by being proactive to help with children's behavior. You talked about it also at the beginning that we shouldn't be reactive, but rather proactive. Do you have any tips on how to be proactive to help with children's behavior?
Oh, yes, I do. It depends how
Fine.
long I have to speak. I'm joking. Um, Okay, so the first thing that I want to say back to the choices thing, no matter how much during the day you have the opportunity to give your child choices, do it. Because the more that they feel during the day that they feel like they've got some sort of control or decision making, the less they feel they need to actually push boundaries and be defiant. The reason why we see children who are pushing boundaries and no, 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 I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. Stop, is because they don't feel they have any choice or independence during the day. It's a child that literally has been told what to do all day, every day. Okay, number one. So that's really important. The other thing is create a prepared environment. Like Montessori talks about this all the time. It's so important that a child feels secure, empowered in their environment. They have things that they can actually access. A lot of the time, the issues come because the child can't access something, they can't reach something, they can't, it's not set up in a way that supports children. So that's a real key thing here. Creating emotional awareness. So having an environment that allows children to express their emotions, to have a space where they can think about their emotions, talk about their emotions. That's really important. Another thing is focusing on the effort of something rather than the outcome. So it comes back to building children's self-confidence. And a lot of the time when we praise them for doing something, we're saying, oh, like, good job for doing that. And, oh, you're such a good girl for listening to me, right? That is not helpful because the child is rewarded or being praised just for complying or just for responding to you. Now, so they're going to do things because they want that validation, where the opposite to that, if you want to truly build their self-esteem and self-confidence, because when we do that, the child then behaves in a way that's so much more cooperative, and because they feel secure, they feel happy, they feel confident in themselves, we need to focus on the effort. So I love the way you gave your sister a turn, or, you put so much effort into that painting, whatever it is. These small moments on the other side, when we're encouraging them in the right way, builds their self-esteem, it builds their confidence in themselves, and it makes them feel secure. When a child is secure and happy and connected, guess what? They're thriving, and you will see less and less of these behaviors. Um, so those are just some quick ways to be proactive, and just be realistic with your expectations. A lot of the times as adults, we have these expectations that children need to do this, 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 this. But yeah, I think it's just about knowing where the child's at and helping to support them during those moments, because that's our job.
I will get a little more practical. Maybe we will answer some of the questions actually in the meantime without really reading the questions.
Mhm.
What should I do when my child keeps testing the same boundary over and over?
Yeah, okay. So when we've got the same thing with the boundaries and stuff, I was just reading the question about difference between praise and encouragement. Oh, I really want to get in there, but that's fine. I'll
We
I'll
will.
answer your
Don't worry,
questions
we
and
will.
we'll get there. So the thing about boundaries is that I have this is what I'm gonna share with everyone today, because it's really quick and practical. There's a 3-step strategy that I love using. Okay. The first thing is connecting and acknowledging. So we know that we need to connect with the child and acknowledge them, right? So say there's a child, they don't want to leave the park. It's, they're having the time of their life, they're having so much fun. The first thing is connecting with them, going up to them, whether they're on the slide or whatever it is, and being like, you're having so much fun. You love the park. And they're like, yeah, I love the park. Want to stay. And then number 2 is stating your expectation, right? So stating expectations means that you let them know what's happening in a very objective way. There's a difference between it's time to leave the park, or like saying, we can't stay here any longer. It's time to go home. Instead of saying all that, it's time to leave the park. So very statement, fact, matter of fact. It's not like personal or anything like that. And then offering them a choice, right? So this 3-step is a great strategy to use whenever your child doesn't want to do something. So the choice is, you can have 1 more slide or 3 more slides. You choose, right? Obviously, the child is going to choose 3 more slides, but that's fine, because you count them down, 3, 2, 1. It's time to go. And you'll see them literally jump off the slide and walk away, because they were part of the decision making process. Okay. They weren't just told, come on, it's time to leave, because they don't have time. Children's brains are so much slower than our brain. They need time to process things. So we need to give them plenty of opportunity to process what's going on, what's coming up. All of that stuff is super important, so that they can know what is then happening next, and they can then be on board with what's happening. So I'll just say it again for everyone listening. Number 1, connect and acknowledge your child's emotions. Number 2, state your expectations objectively. Okay. Number 3, offer a choice. These things do work. I feel like they prevent a tantrum from happening. It's also good if your child is overwhelmed. I can say they hit their sibling because they were upset that their sibling took something off them, whatever it is. I can see you're really upset. Hands on your own body, right? I said to the child, hands on your own body. If you're really upset, you can come and talk to me, or you can stomp your feet, whatever it is. You're giving them a choice on how they can cope with the emotion, rather than taking it out on their sister. They did not mean to hit their brother or sister. You have to understand they didn't know what else to do. It was a natural instinct. They haven't been taught that when they feel angry, they can stomp their feet, they can clench their fists, they can say that they're angry, they can use their words. These are all strategies that we need to then help the child build outside of these moments that we see. And in the moments, we just need to be firm with healthy boundaries. We don't need to be angry. We just need to hands on your own body. That's where they belong. And you can even show your child hands on your own body. So that's a really good one for kids that are hitting. I can see you're angry. You're really upset right now, and then letting them know what they can do instead of what they can't do. And that repetition, being consistent, is so important to change, because we're rewiring. That's what we're doing. We're using these skills and these strategies to then rewire a child's brain on what to do when that emotion comes up. And it's like practice. It's like anything. You need time and you need consistency.
Let's go to that question from Anam. What is the difference between praise and encouragement? I have read some research that says praise has negative consequences for children. What does Montessori have to say about this?
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was talking about. And with the whole there is a difference between praise and encouragement. So what I was talking about when we talk about praise is a lot of the time the traditional praise, when we talk about saying things like, oh, good job, good girl, good boy, beautiful, that's so wonderful, well done. That is a subjective opinion about what I think that you have done. Okay. So if somebody says to someone, oh, good job, it means that I think you've done a good job. It's an external acknowledgement on somebody. So then my sense of validation comes from hearing from somebody else that I'm good. Okay. There's a big difference between that and me feeling good about myself from inside, intrinsic motivation, which is what Montessori encourages, because I'm proud of myself, because I feel like I did a good job, because I feel strong about whatever it is that I've done. And the difference there is that I won't be seeking external acknowledgement from someone else to make myself feel good, because that's insecurity. So if I need to rely on external sources to make myself feel validated, that means that I'm insecure within myself and I'm doubting my ability. So the way we combat that is through effective encouragement. And it doesn't mean not to praise your children. No, they need that encouragement. They need that validation, but you want to do it in a way that builds their self-confidence, self-esteem, makes them feel good about themselves internally rather than because someone told them that they were being good. Because what they'll do is they'll doubt themselves. They'll be like, oh, but she didn't say good job this time. Am I not good enough? Was that painting not beautiful this time? Why didn't I hear it? Because they're relying on that. Whereas if you say to them, you've put so much effort into that painting, or I love the yellow and blue that you use. Can you tell me more about it? There was this one time that a child was struggling to carry her school bag and putting it into a cubby. And she looked at me and she was waiting for me to say, you're so strong, you can do it. But I didn't say anything. I just said to her, try using two hands. And she's struggling, and she put it in her cubby. And she looked at me and she said, Miss Sylvia, I'm so strong. Look. And I was so proud of her because she felt that she was strong from within herself. When you hear a child saying, I did it, I'm so proud of myself. It's beautiful because you see how validated and how, secure they feel in themselves. And that's what we want for children. So that's the difference. Montessori always encourages things like, you can say you did it. You look so proud of yourself. Tell me more about your painting. Like, let them be the ones to show you and tell you about, and that's how you encourage them. And sometimes you can just look at them and smile. You don't have to say, good job. I hope that answers it.
I'm going through the questions here, but I believe we answered so many of them without
Okay.
really asking them. um, I will ask a question from Amina. Let me find it. It ran away.
Oh, yeah. How can I guide my 2-year-old to stop saying, I will hit you when we disagree, or when, yeah, she doesn't get what she wants, or even when she says it without cause? Yeah, absolutely. So the thing is, this is a great question. So she's saying, I will hit you because that's her way of expressing that she doesn't agree or she doesn't like that or whatever it is. So I would respond saying, you feel really upset or you don't like what I just said, you know. And then I would acknowledge whatever it is that she wanted in the first place, because obviously there was something that she disagreed about. And then I would offer her a choice. Okay, in that situation, outside of that situation, I would totally be setting up a calming corner, meaning a space where you can talk about feeling angry, feeling upset, frustrated. Books, there are so many beautiful books on when I'm feeling sad, when I'm feeling angry, whatever it is, have great strategies. And you can talk to her when she's calm outside of that about emotions. Oh, when you're angry, you feel like hitting. This is what we can do. Squeeze a pillow. You can even give her a pillow when she's saying, I will hit you. Oh, here's this pillow. Squeeze the pillow. Show me how angry you are or frustrated. That's a healthy way for her to release her anger rather than hit you, right? So it's about showing children what's a better way to deal and cope with my emotions. And don't think that you're not supposed to allow a child to feel angry. That's just not the way to support children. They need to understand the ways to have healthy negative feelings, because they're not negative, they're just normal. We're adults. We feel angry. We have to learn how to cope in an appropriate way. Not, I'm not going to go hit someone because I feel angry at them. I'm going to express how angry I am, or I'm going to, whatever it is that I do to calm myself down. So I hope that's helpful. So in the moment, acknowledge her feelings, state what you need to, and then give her a choice. And then outside of that, you need to be working on building her emotional vocabulary and setting up a space where she can actually learn more. And over time, that will definitely help. You see kids who will literally go to a calming corner when they feel upset or frustrated or angry, sit there, hug a angry hippo or whatever we have, and look at the chart, look at the faces of the angry, and they'll point to it. And then after a few minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, they're ready to then come and join the group. It's amazing how these strategies and skills can actually change children.
Another question from Claudia. Can we traumatize our children from our reactions to their actions? Of course, non-physical or violent reactions.
Yeah, I've heard this a lot. And the thing is, what I want to say to parents and everything, because I know a lot of the time, look, if the behavior is constant, so if a child grows up in a space where they are exposed to, yelling, screaming, shouting as the normal, everyday type of communication, that child will develop insecurities, psychological issues. However, if we are in a space that's intentional and conscious, and yes, there is a bit of yelling here and there, you're not going to traumatize your child, because they are very resilient. And children understand, or they pass things very quickly. Something that is in their brain for 1 minute or like 2 minutes ago, they will then, not think about that later on. So we hold on to things as adults a lot more than children do. They're very forgiving. They're very resilient. When they go through things in life, they can bounce back from that a lot quicker than we can. My advice, though, is whenever you do feel like you might have dealt with something in a way that you didn't want to, definitely take that time to try and make amends with your child. Like I said earlier, let them know, I really didn't like the way I handled that. I should have done this. Like, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. And this is what I'll do next time, because that's a great learning opportunity for everyone involved. But don't think that you're going to scar your children because you lost it for 5 minutes. It's normal. It happens all the time. Everyone's just human, and you're only trying to do your best.
Another very, I would say, classical question, and I was waiting for this one to come. What if only one parent practices gentle parenting and other
Oh,
one
yeah.
doesn't? Is
Oh,
one
yeah.
parent doing gentle parenting enough to raise a secure and confident child?
Oh, look, it's really difficult, and it's such a tricky question when you've got one parent that's doing one thing and the other parent that's doing another thing. Okay. The first thing is you can only do as much as you can possibly do, right? And sometimes the one thing that I find really effective if the other parent is using a more traditional type of parenting is that I will literally ask for their opinion on something. So I will be like, "Oh, I came across this video," or I'll send them a reel, or I'll send them a whatever it is, that type of communication you have with your partner, and I'll be like, "What do you think of that? Do you think that would work?" Or, like be inquisitive with them. Don't just say what you're doing is wrong. It's not, it's not working and blah blah, because that will be defensive straight away. So the communication strategies actually you can use with your partner. So I acknowledge their feelings, right? Connect with them. You really feel like that's the best way to do this with our child. State your expectation. What about, have you thought about this? Right? Give them a choice. Oh, have you thought about reading that thing I sent you, or did you want to watch this video? So the thing is that I would try and have those open discussions with them if you can. The second thing is, try and figure out what are your major differences and where you can compromise. So this is a discussion that you really need to have with your partner at some point. If it is really bothering you, or if it's a way that you feel like you just want to have some compromise on certain things, you can say, "Oh, I've noticed that blah blah blah," or and share them success stories. So I would say, "Oh, what I did today when blah 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 this happened, I acknowledge his feelings and I offer them a choice, and then, oh my gosh, it was amazing. And share the success that you've had with your child when you've approached it a certain way. And then the other thing I would say is, sometimes it's okay if one parent is one way and one parent's the other way, because the child develops relationships with to each parent, right, respectively. And there are some relationships with children that they might need that connection with one parent more than another. There's also one parent who might be more dominant in the parenting space than the other. So it depends on your environment. It depends on who's with that child, most of the time. But I think the thing is having those open, honest conversations, saying things like Amy just said, "I notice, I wonder if, have you thought about that?" Ask questions. Don't go in there and tell them. Just ask questions. What are you thinking about this? And also respecting their role. And it's very hard, because sometimes if you've been through all that and you haven't had those discussions from the start, and you want to start implementing them now, it will be more difficult. So giving as much information as you possibly can, sharing stories, saying things like, "I noticed blah blah blah," and then just having some sort of a compromise. But give yourself grace, because parenting is an ongoing journey. It's not something that's like, going to be there for 5 minutes. And it's okay. You are doing the best that you can to support your child, to make them feel secure and confident. And that's the best that you can do. So,
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. And it's already 5 till 10 here. So I guess I will not be asking any more questions, because I first want to tell you that there are 2 speakers today at the Zoom session. At least I think there are 2. I know about Amy Williams, and I also know about Spramani Alone. So I wanted to invite you to their sessions on Thursday. Another thing that I wanted to share, and I hope that Sylvia, you will not mind, about the course that you have recorded for us, because I believe this is something that everyone could benefit from. So if you don't mind, I would share my screen, and I wanted to show you the course that Sylvia recorded for Montessori parenting. And because we also have a $200 off for the conference attendees. So I just wanted to share it in the last 3-4 minutes. Sylvia, if you want to, jump in, just tell me.
no, it's fine. I'm reading the comments and stuff. I'll see if I can get.
So this is the course that Sylvia has created, and it's amazing. I'm really loving it. That's why I'm sharing it. It's a 12-week course. It has 12 modules, and it's covering all of the topics that we have talked about today. So it's covering, the foundations of Montessori, childhood development. It talks about discipline, how to encourage respectful behavior, about observation, active listening, different effective communication tools, that build the cooperation and the connection with the child. There is a module about praise and building self-esteem, about managing emotions, handling tantrums. Then it's freedom and limits, so setting the boundaries, dealing with power struggles, navigating siblings, and the whole family dynamics that we have talked about. Building the child's resilience, independence, creating routines, and preparing the environment, of course, as well, because it's very important. And the whole course has 12 modules, as I said. It has all the audio files, workbooks. It has personal support from Sylvia. It has the community, all different bonus resources, guides, cheat sheets, different tools that you can print out. And we usually sell the course at the website. You can see it at almost $600. But for the conference, we have taken $200 off. For the first 20 orders, we have this special bonus of our Childhood Potential Club membership. If you would not like the course, we are refunding 100% within the first 30 days. So if you would be interested, this is the website where you can find it, montessoriparenting.org/growing together. And this is the promo code for the $200 off. And that's all from my sharing.
Thanks, Lucy. I just wanted to say thank you, everyone, for joining me as well. And yeah, like I said, if you did have any questions that you thought about after the fact or something like that, you can always reach out to me. I really appreciate everyone taking their time of their morning, day, night, wherever it is. I saw some people in the chat that I recognize as well, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the conference. So thanks, Lucy, for having me.